Welcome to Rich Planet TV. I'm Richard D. Hall. As you may know, at Rich Planet, we don't like to report on stories that are creations of mainstream media, because inevitably they turn out to be either false or pushed for an ulterior motive. One mainstream story that has featured heavily over the last 7 years is the so-called phone hacking scandal. Let's correct that straight off and give it its proper name, the phone hacking psyop. It was not a scandal, it was a carefully orchestrated pantomime, a psychological operation created for a specific purpose. Today, I am going to refocus this phony bone of contention and shine the spotlight onto the questions that this psyop was set up to hide. But before I do that, a quick bit of background. Phone hacking usually consists of obtaining somebody's mobile phone number and possibly their password, but that's not always necessary, then retrieving and listening to that person's messages remotely without having access to their actual phone. In some cases, it involves recording live telephone calls made by that person. With a mobile, this would normally require some help from a phone company or an intelligence agency. It's well known that people working for mainstream newspapers have been using such techniques to gather information on thousands of people going back to the 1990s, mainly to gather information on celebrities who they like to write stories about. Why bother to get off your arse to find out information when you can just hack someone's phone from your office? Up to 2011, the practice of phone hacking had been reported in mainstream media many times, with various people being named and arrested for such offences. The other thing to point out is there was, and perhaps still is, a relationship between those doing the hacking and the police. Hackers share information with the police about what they have retrieved and recorded, and in return, the hackers get tip-offs on criminal cases. The hackers and the police both benefit from these activities, and the police do not usually pursue hackers for their crimes. It wasn't until July 2011, and I am sure some of you remember the birth of the so-called hacking scandal, which started on the 5th of July that year. Initially with stories claiming that the phone of murdered schoolgirl Millie Dowler had been hacked 9 years previously, back in 2002. More phone hacking scandal stories followed the day after, then more the day after that, and we were then told that these stories were so scandalous that the News of the World had decided to close down its newspaper. If you believe this sequence of events on face value, you are as green as the grass at Wembley Stadium. Out of all the people who have had their phones hacked, the case which was central to the whole psyop was that of Millie Dowler. The Dowlers were the first people to be interviewed by the Leveson enquiry. The Dowlers were one of the few non-celebrity cases being investigated by Leveson. But more importantly, the phone hacking scandal had its kick-off time just a few days after the trial of Millie Dowler's killer had come to an end, despite the actual so-called hacking taking place in 2002. So just to recap, the Dowler case is the first case being exposed in the 2011 phone hacking scandals. It was the first case presented at Leveson, and the media scandal commenced immediately after the Millie Dowler trial. But why? Why did the phone hacking issue, which had been going on for years, suddenly become the most important thing on the planet when it was common knowledge that phone hacking was happening? Why were these fairly minor crimes being blown out of all proportion and turned into a media circus? I think the answer lies in the detail of the case of Millie Dowler.